today I want to talk with you guys a little bit about what I like to call revenge magic. So what is this? Well, basically it's when you've been wronged and you would like to correct the situation involving magic of some kind, right? So typically this will come up for people mainly in the relationship area of their lives when someone has broken up with them and they do not agree with the breakup and they would like them back and the other person is like, no, thank you. It can also come from places like, if you've been wronged by a friend or a family member. These are some areas where I see people wanting to do this type of magic. Now, if you are watching this video hoping to get some instructions on how to do this, that's not, excuse me, what this is going to be about today. I would like to just give you some considerations to think about if this is something that you're interested in doing, because I think there are a lot of underlying factors that people are not really looking at because they're so caught up in their emotions and their frustrations and wanting to punish somebody for what's happening to them. And so a lot of times they don't really consider the side effects or the consequences of doing this type of magic, because magic is very much about the intention of what you are trying to do. Now, of course, with any sort of revenge magic, we are doing more so, I guess it would fall probably into the category of like black magic, because what you're doing is you are imposing or infringing upon someone's free will and free choice to do something, right? Especially in relationships, someone says, hey, no, thank you. You're like, no, you don't get to say no, thank you. You don't get to pick, I get to pick, right? Like that's kind of what you're saying. So I want to go over 8 different points that you might want to consider or that are helpful when trying to understand this type of magic. Now, primarily today, I'm going to really be talking about revenge magic as it applies to relationships, because this, I feel like, is the most consistent one that comes up, but there may be some other things in here that may resonate with you too if you've got another type of stuff going on. So let's start talking about what's happening here. Well, the first thing you want to consider is, why are you really genuinely wanting to be with somebody who has told you in no uncertain terms that they don't want to be with you, right? Like, what is that about? Like, I really get confused by that statement. I understand sometimes when your emotions are in control, it's very difficult, but it's basically if someone walks up to you and says, I hate you, and you say, but I want to be your friend. Like what, like there's just, the reasoning in that just seems a little flawed to me. Why do you want somebody that's saying that they are not interested? So that is really an important question I think that you should be asking yourself before you attempt to step into this type of working. The second question that I think it's really important to ask is, do you really want this person back? Or do you just want to really stop hurting, right? Because I think that's a lot of reasons why people tend to feel either entitled to things, whether it's information or people or objects or whatever stuff. It's because they really feel like they want to stop whatever emotion is happening, and they have this reasoning in their head, well, if I can get this or do this, then this will go away, right? And that's not how emotions work. Like, you cannot control your emotions. All you can do is kind of ride them out, right? And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Like, I can't tell you to be like super angry and be super sad and be super happy. Like, human beings don't just work that way. You can try to fake it or bring up an emotion that like elicits that same response, but if it's not genuine, you're not going to be able to hold on to it. And so I think what a lot of people are really doing is they're really grieving the loss of something that they love, that was genuinely so important and valuable to them. And that's a big deal, right? And so trying to get somebody back is trying to just kind of cover up that sort of hole. And so I think that is a second reason or a second thing that people are doing. So that's a really important question to ask yourself if you're considering this type of magic. The third thing that we really want to consider is that you really can't force anyone to be with you, at least not permanently, especially if they're not the right person for you, right? Like, you can kind of do things for so long, but eventually if the energy isn't right and you're messing with kind of the forces of nature and the universe, and it's going to come apart eventually. And when it comes apart, it doesn't come apart usually in a very nice way, is what happens. And there's usually a cost to you. And the reason that I say this is because I've seen it time and time again. So I'm not just like trying to scare you or blow smoke. I've seen some people really hurting badly, worse than they would have normally been hurting if they would have just let things unfold organically and naturally. The other thing about this type of magic that I think is really detrimental is that you are holding on to something that's not right for you. And in doing so, you are putting a placeholder in your life that is preventing the right thing from coming in, because you've got this other person stuck right there. And it's not just happening to you, it's happening to the other person. So when you do these type of things, it's also really preventing you from finding somebody who's a better match or a better fit. The fourth thing I want to talk about is that magic is not a band-aid to avoid dealing with any problems in your life, right? There's a lot of bypassing going on right now in the community, and this is one of the ways that people can do that, right? We all have lessons to learn and experiences that we need to go through, and using magic to solve your problems is not going to help you, right? We have to really be self-aware. We have to be able to focus on and realize the healing that we need to do in order to progress. And when you're doing magic, you are not allowing yourself to get to those spaces. So I think that that's a really important consideration to make. The fifth thing we want to talk about is really simple. If you've ever truly loved anything, like just genuinely and authentically loved anything, you've been able to let it go for the other person's happiness, right? For the sake of the other person's happiness. And that's what love really is. Love really means allowing things to move from your space, even if they're painful, because you love the other person enough that you would rather have them be happy, even if it hurts you, right? Their happiness is important. And so that means that instead of having them kind of chaining them to you to make them miserable because you love them so much, it's like, I love you enough to let you go. So the sixth thing really goes back to kind of the whole title of like revenge magic, right? I think sometimes when we're really hurt, we just want somebody to understand how hurt we are, right? We just want somebody to be like, I'm in pain, please just acknowledge this, right? And we want to punish somebody so that they feel as bad as we do, and we feel like that will somehow make it equal or balance the scales. And the truth is that when you're doing this type of thing and you're punishing someone else, you're also punishing yourself at the same time. You are keeping yourself stuck in this energy. You are refusing to forgive yourself and forgive the other person. And so, you're never going to be able to hurt somebody exactly the same way that they hurt you. You're not necessarily going to be able to make them understand the connection between this bad thing that's happening and the pain that they caused you. And what it is you're just trying to make yourself feel better by punishing someone else. And that doesn't typically work in the long run. A lot of people who have, gotten their revenge or gotten just lucky enough to see karma come back around and smack the other person in an equal manner, it doesn't feel as satisfying as you think that it will. And it really doesn't change anything that's happening inside of you. That's your work to do. That's your stuff to release. That's your growth. That's your healing. And you are the person that is responsible for that. So I think sometimes when we think about stuff in that way, it might make it easier for us to be able to release the things and the people who have caused us pain in our lives. The seventh thing I want you to consider, and this is such a big one. So sometimes people are trying to hold on to other people who maybe one might not just be right for them, two might be like a clusterfuck catastrophe, just tornado of dumpster fire, right? And you just either think you can save them or you think if I just hang in there long enough. But a lot of times what's happening, what I really find is that the people that you are with that are trying to leave or that maybe you just need to get rid of they're not healed enough or ready enough or in a place where they can actually be in a functioning adult relationship with you. And so that's another consideration too. If you're trying to pull somebody back towards you, hey, is this person ready for a relationship? Would I recommend, my friend get in a relationship with this person? Like that's a really good test, right? Would you want your friend and someone you care about dating this type of person, knowing the things that they do and how they react and whatever? Like, what sort of advice would you give your friend if she were in that situation? And I think oftentimes if we can pull ourselves out of it and look at it from like a third point of view or a different perspective or, like an observer perspective, you might really see like, hey, this person isn't actually ready for something. The eighth and final thing that I really want to talk about as a consideration when doing revenge magic is when you are doing any type of magic, it really needs to be a collaboration. It needs to be a co-creation with the universe in order for it to be successful for all parties involved, because you are not an island. Whatever you do is affecting the next person, the next person, the next person. It sends a ripple out into the universe, not just towards you and your immediate world and community, but to your city and your town and the state and the country and the rest of the world. Like, it does ripple. It is a chain of events. Even if it's a small one, small changes in your life can make a big difference. If you think about like a small change for you that's made a big difference, so you know what a big effect doing something like this can do. So the best way to do something is really to co-create with the universe and not say, hey, I want this person in, but like, hey, this is the type of person I'm looking for, right? What's going to be something that's going to be good for me and beneficial for people around me, and like what's going to be beneficial for the universe. If two people together have a really great energy together and they bring more love and joy and happiness into the world, as opposed to more drama and more upheaval, right? Like what sort of energy are you really creating, and how does that ripple out? So I think that's an important thing too. One of the things I really like to do if I'm on the fence or really struggling with somebody, instead of actually doing some sort of magic towards that, I just throw it out to the universe and I release my control of it. I go, look, if this is the right person for me, I'm tired of all this back and forth. I'm tired of all this BS and all whatever this is that's going on. If they're the right person, straighten this stuff out and bring them back to me. If they are not the right person, then just remove them. It'll be painful, but I know that I will get over it. But just remove them if this is the wrong person. And it has always worked, much to my disappointment on many occasions. But what it really has done in retrospect, when I've gone back in time and like looked at those moments and reviewed and analyzed, I've been like, I was just too caught in my own stuff. I didn't see how bad this person was for me, and I'm so glad that I asked for that, because I keep thinking about my life at the moment and what that would have done to it and what that would have held me back from all the opportunities and the relationships and friendships and connections and just life experiences that I would have missed, that I loved, right? So that's another consideration as well. Like really practice co-creating with the universe, because that's what's going to bring you things that are going to be for your best and highest good, and they're going to bring you joy. And that's what really I think is the most important thing when you are connecting with people in a relationship or a partnership. So I hope that has given you some things to really like think about or consider before you are trying to do any sort of revenge magic of any kind. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And until next time, have an absolutely beautiful day.